The Tales of Limindoor Woods by Sieglinde Francesca, Book 1, The Way of Gnome.
Chapter 6. Gilly. Far above them a bird sang out, but otherwise all was quiet around them. Neither Gus nor Mies made a sound on the soft forest path. Gus realized he was feeling excited, but also a little bit shy about meeting a new gnome. Eventually, Mies stepped off the path and stood where the boughs of two trees came together. The trees looked as if they were hugging each other. They created an archway between them. "This is Gilly's place," whispered Mies. "Just go on in. He's expecting you. I will be off now. Farewell and cheerio," said Mies, as he turned to skitter back along the path towards his home. Gus hesitantly stepped between the trees and beheld a marvel there. In a clearing deep in the woods grew a strange and wonderful jungle filled with all kinds of plants. There were great green bushes growing from thick orangey roots that seemed to push up out of the ground. Could these be carrots? There were tall curly vines that twisted and clung, coiling up high, while long green velvety canoes hung down. Were those green pea pods? There were blossoms of all colors that bobbed high above, reaching towards the sun. Gus saw a stand of many thin branchless saplings with long spiky brushes at the top. They must have been almost 10 times taller than Gus. It took a moment to realize that they were stalks of wheat growing there. He wondered for a moment what his papa, a miller, would say if he saw wheat that large. The sound of digging attracted Gus's attention. He followed it around the maze of garden rows until he came to its source. There he saw a gnome, surely Gilly, digging next to what seemed like a bright orange playhouse. "It's not very big yet," said Gilly, as if he'd been talking to Gus all along. "But wait until autumn." "Hello there, I'm Gilly," he said as he turned and held out his hand. Gus quite forgot about his good manners and just stood there with his mouth wide open in surprise, for he had just realized what it was that Gilly was growing. "Hello," he said distractedly, "but that's a pumpkin, a gigantic pumpkin." Then he turned to Gilly, shook his hand, and apologetically said, "Oh, sorry. Hello, Mr. Gilly. I am Gus." In many ways, Gilly resembled Mossy. He had a similar pointy hat, but his hat was a nice greenish brown. His beard was not as long nor as white as Mossy's, but he had the same kind, smiling eyes. "Here, Gus, take this and come with me," Gilly said, handing Gus the shovel. They turned down another path that must have been a row of herbs, for the smells there were so very nice. As they walked along the row, Gilly reached up and tore off a piece of a green, saw-edged leaf from one of the plants. Suddenly the whole garden smelled of fresh mint. "Let's go have some tea," said Gilly. Not far from the end of the row, a tidy footpath of stones led to Gilly's house. Just as with the other gnomes, his door was fitted into an arch at the roots of a great tree. But Gilly's house had a special shelf above his door where a branch grew, just so, making it like a little room up there. Gus playfully thought that if he lived at Gilly's, he would like to have that space for his room. There were windows on each side of the door. In the front he had placed an outdoor table, bench, and chair. Gilly sat down on the chair and took the shovel back from Gus. As he scraped the dirt off of it, as well as from his boots, he said, "I'll be just a moment, Gus. Feel free to look around the garden." It seemed as though it was only moments before Gilly came out again with a tray with acorn shell cups on it, much as Mossy had done. But these cups held sweet mint tea. "I hope you like honey, Gus. I use it in everything." As Gus took a seat on the bench, he noticed that Gilly had brought out 3 cups. But before he could ask who the third one was for, he almost dropped his, for what looked like a fat, golden, fuzzy hummingbird buzzed right up to the table, hovered there a moment, and then settled on the rim of the third cup. "Good morning, Hummy. I see you found your tea," said Gilly to the creature. "This is our new friend Gus." Gus was speechless. Was that a bee? An enormous honey bee? He wondered. "Gus," Gilly said, "I would like you to meet Hummy. Hummy is one of my closest friends. She officially works for the Queen at the Royal Honey Palace, but she spends much of her time helping me here in my garden." Hello, Hummy," Gus said shyly. "I've never actually met a bee before." "It's very nice to finally meet you, Gus," said Hummy, who was then flitting around a nearby blossom. "Gilly, have you told Gus about the Royal Honey Festival? It will be very soon," she said. "I can tell because the royal honeycombs are almost filled to the brims. We won't have any room for the late summer honey unless you gnomes come and gather some of ours." "I will, Hummy. I've only just now met Gus myself, and we have much to share. I promise, though, I'll tell him all about the honey festival." "All right, then, I must go. It is also Her Majesty's the Queen's royal tea time. That's when I serve the Queen her royal jelly, her very most favourite treat. Bye, Gilly. Thank you for the tea. Bye-bye, Gus." And off she flew. "Honey seems very nice, and I did like the taste of the honey that you put in the tea. It tasted, well, kind of flowery," said Gus. Gilly smiled and nodded, a bit proudly in agreement. "So tell me, how is it that you come to Limindoor Woods, Gus? I've never seen a tall one here before." Gus felt so at ease with Gilly that he told him everything, how he had recently moved to the red and white house by the stream, how he had seen the mountain rising above the forest. He told him about his favourite apple tree that grew atop Apple Tree Hill behind his house. "But of course," Gus said, "I didn't know that the forest was Limindoor Woods then." He told how he magically, by just passing into the woods, had become the same size as the gnomes. And last of all, he said how very much he would like to find that mountain. Gilly told him that his best chance for that was to ask Pebble the gnome, which of course Gus already knew. Gus then asked, as politely as he could, to hear Gilly's story. He said that he loved hearing about Mossy's adventures and was sure that anyone who took a scout about must have an exciting tale to tell.